There we go. Can't place the camera that way. Okay, so we are placing out pine trees. We're coming around our building. How about grouping over here? I want to, again, try and avoid placing anything too high in front of the sun. I don't want it covered up too much. Let's grab our group of elderberry trees and azalea bushes here. And duplicate them. And let's move it down into that corner because it's looking a bit bare down there. And we'll rotate them. Again, I'm only rotating them so it's less obvious that we've copied a group from here and moved it over here. But we can swap it up a bit anyway by just grabbing one of them and duplicating it. We'll move it maybe into the background here. And scale it up so it looks like it's a bit of an older tree. Again, we've just got to be careful when we do these scales that we don't go too extreme because we don't want the leaves to start looking too big or the flowers to look too big. It won't look natural. And I think we may grab a couple of azalea bushes, another different colour. We'll use the pink one. Did we use the pink one or the white one there? I think we used the white one. So let's grab a pink one. I have two different types of pink azalea bush. We'll grab both of them. And I think we'll grab one that has no flowers at all. And we'll sort of stick that one in here in the background. Again, I'm going to jump back to the beginning here where our camera actually comes over our second terrace. And no OBS is not going to like that until I switch my camera around this way. Here we go. Again, I just want to get an idea of what the scene is going to look like when our camera first comes into this area. So our camera will come through here. We still have to work out what we're going to do with the path and around the actual building. I still haven't really thought about what I want to do there yet. Let's concentrate on the art first. So we have our big hero tree here. We've got our pine tree grouping over here. I really think we need something through here. And I think again the best thing to do will be for us to grab that group we just made over here. And again, we could create a blueprint out of this so it's easier for us to move around without having to individually select them all the time. We may do that. It's a good way to actually group stuff together in Unreal. We'll just call this yard bushes prefab. That'll do. We'll stick it in our prefab folder. Now it's easy for us to select and move around. We don't have to select individual trees. Let's duplicate it. Again, I'm going to pull my camera way up here. Let's move them over. Now again, you're never going to notice it's the same grouping because this one's way in the background here. We're going to move this one up here into this corner. I really wish Unreal wouldn't do that. So even though we've copied the exact same group, I'm just going to get back down again. You can never see the one in the background at the same time as you see this one. So you're never going to, people are never going to know it's a copy of the same thing. Particularly if you just rotate it in a different sort of, at a different sort of angle. I think it may be just a bit too far into the ground. Again, I've just got to watch my camera. OBS really doesn't like it when I face my camera that way. And I have looked at trying to do the affinity thing, Sniper Echo, but yeah, that didn't help. I think it's a problem with the new version of OBS, to be honest. But that's okay. I love the software. I'm not going to stop using it. And again, I don't want to cover up our rocks in the background there in our forest because it adds a nice change of scenery from all trees to have some rocks showing. So I just want to make sure I don't cover them up too much. Let's deselect those. Alright, so our yard is starting to fill up a bit here now. And again, a reminder guys that I'm streaming now at a higher bit rate than my previous streams. Starting this week I'm using 3000 kilobits a second to stream at. Now normally I have transcoding options available for you to change it from if it's too much for you. It shouldn't be, 3000 is pretty standard. But I did notice when I started streaming this morning that those transcoding options aren't there, so I don't know what Twitch is doing at the moment. But generally, if you have a problem, there'll be transcoding that you can turn it down. Alright, again, let's jump back over here to near our pond. I just want to check our pathway through here. Alright, now again, I think we need another grouping of something here. I want to avoid, like I said, going too high because I don't want to cover up our sun. But the yard just looks a bit empty through here. So we have to decide on what we're going to put there. Ideally I'd like another one of these hero trees, but like I was explaining, I can't really copy this one because it's such a unique shape. People are going to notice. It's okay to copy trees like this which are pretty much, they're not so unique, but something like this where the tree is actually quite a unique shape because we have this trunk formation here. People will notice if you copy that around this tree. So yeah, reuse trees when you can, but anything unique like this which has a really unique looking shape, that don't copy that around because people will notice regardless of where you put it. So I really only created those two hero trees for our yard. This one here and this one we've got here. This one's more of a generic shape, so we could probably reuse that one. In fact, let's have a look. Let's see if we can reuse that one. I'm going to jump back into my my foliage model, and let's go back over to this side of the yard. Again, I've really got to be careful though. I can't have anything too high because of our sunset, so we're a bit stuck here. What will we put here? Let me see what I've got to work with. I thought I had a tree like root. Not a tree root, but like a tree that had been cut down. I just don't remember if I brought it in yet or not. No. No. I did. This one here. Let's pull that in. Whoa, what are you doing? Okay. Unreal was just slowing down for a bit. I'm going to save this file here because I really don't trust any software not to crash. Although I've not had a problem. Unreal has crashed once on me. I've been using it now for, a couple of months or a month and a half or so. It's crashed once, so it's pretty good. Let's have a look at this tree root. It's really tiny, so let's scale it up. Yeah. Last thing you want to do is be working and then have the thing crash and lose all your work. We have this interesting looking tree root. What it is actually a tree that's been cut down, like I said. And I brought that in because I thought it could make an interesting object in the yard. Let me just make sure it's positioned correctly here. Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting looking thing. My initial plan though was to have it around the front of the building, so let's move it there to begin with. You see my pivot is off. I really should resave that with the axes centered to the object, but we'll work with it the way it is at the moment. We're not going to be using it very much. We're only going to use it once, probably, so we can work with it like this. Where did I move it? Okay. And originally I thought placing it near our pond area would look interesting. So again, I'm just going to move this around a bit. Again, I'm just being careful with my camera because of OBS. It doesn't like being pointed in one direction, basically, which is off to that direction. Let's move this through here. Get back down again. So we have our entry through here. I'm going to scale this up. I'm going to pull it up quite a bit because I want to see some of those tree roots amongst our grass. Not too high though. I don't want it to look like it's floating on top of the hill here. Yeah, I just thought when we bring our camera through, something to have this interesting looking dead tree here, just to add a bit more interest near our pond, was the original reason I created it. But that again, because it's such a unique looking object, it really can't be reused again without being noticed that you're just copying the same thing. Even if we rotated it, it's still going to be noticeable as being the same mesh. So it's only good for one spot, I'm afraid. Then that looks okay. Again, I just wanted to add a bit more interest near our pond as our camera comes up here. Let's look at our entryway here. We do have, again, I'm going to go backwards with my camera because I don't want to swing it around. we do have our pathway here. I could continue that along into our building. Let's see what that looks like. If we don't like it, we can remove it. So let's jump into our landscape tool. Again, let's just do a quick save all. Into our paint of our landscape tool. And I've got to remember which one it is. I think it's this one. Or is it this one? It's one of these two. 15. I'm just going to double check what what the actual texture is called before I start painting. Again, I'm using substances here from Algorithmic for these textures. And that's just so I can change them up, the size and all that type of thing on the fly without having to re-export textures from Substance Painter. I'm just got to find that texture I'm using. It's this one here. Path Rocks. Let's look at the materials. Actually, it's probably easier for me to find that way. I can't remember which one I used. Where is it? It's not rock. It's not mud. You would think it would be that one, but I'm pretty sure it's not that one. All right. I can't remember which one of these it is, so we're just going to take a potluck here and we'll choose one and start painting and see how we go. Now, the reason I'm being careful here is because when you work with an Unreal landscape and you have multiple materials like I have here, and I'm using, what am I using? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, around 6 or 7 different materials. That's a lot. You generally won't use this many, particularly if you're making a game. If you're doing a game and you're using your landscape tool here in Unreal, don't go more than 3 layers deep. We're doing a cinematic, so I'm not so worried about it. But the other problem you can run into if you start putting a lot of materials here for your landscape, each section of the landscape here can only take so many materials, and it's usually like, I think, 4. And when you start painting more than 4 on one section of your landscape, it's going to make the it's going to basically black out the entire landscape. So if you're working with an Unreal landscape like we are, so we're working with a landscape that's been created with a height map using the Unreal landscape mesh. If you're working with one of those and you're painting on your landscape and all of a sudden your landscape goes black, it's because there's too many materials for that section of the landscape. And again, each landscape is made up of squares, large squares, but squares. And you can't have generally more than 4 textures on one of those squares at a time without running into problems. That and the fact that it increases the shader, so it's going to slow your game down. So I just wanted to point that out because I noticed a lot in Unreal's forums, people saying, oh, my landscape turns black, what's going on? If it turns black, it's because usually it means you're using too many textures on that landscape piece. And again, don't generally go more than 3. You can use more like I am, so long as you're careful and you don't paint more than 4 in one spot. So yeah, just a heads up for you guys that are using Unreal, just be careful of that. Yeah. It's just, like I said, it's something I've noticed in the forums on Epic's UE4 forums. A lot of people have had problems with the landscape tool. And generally it's because their landscape is turning black. And that's usually the reason. It's not always the reason, but usually that's the reason. They do, Epic do tell you in their documents, if people read them, but not generally, not to have more than 4 materials on a section of landscape. Or 4 textures, 4 different textures anyway. That's what I mean by materials. Because you've got to remember too, each of these materials has a height map and a normal map as well as a color map. So that's adding up as far as your landscape goes. Oh, good. Side Dad says I just solved the problem he has. So yeah, that's generally a problem. It's just too many materials in one section of your landscape. Because again, though, remember each landscape is made up of squares. So on this landscape, let's just pull up, which is not huge, but you know, a large section of land. That's got each square is about that big. So we could probably maybe say we've got 32 squares making up this landscape. And so long as you don't use more than 4 textures on one of those squares at a time, you should be fine. Alright, let's see if we can find this texture I'm using for my stones for my path. Let's try this one. I don't know if it is that one though. Let's do this pavement one. It's either going to be the pavement or it's not the circle pavement, but I think it may be the pavement. Now you see what's happened here. That's just, I'm waiting, because this is the first time I've used this texture on this piece of the landscape, I have to wait for the shader to recompile. Nothing you can do about that. That's just the way the shaders work in Unreal. When the first time you use it on a new square of your landscape, it needs to recompile that square. Good opportunity for me to have a coffee anyway. A cold coffee. Compiling. Is there any other tips I can tell you guys about Unreal while this is compiling? Your lighting. With your lighting, you want to generally make sure that you're using a dynamic directional light. If you're using an outside environment like this with a lot of foliage, you don't generally want to set that to static. So your dynamic light, don't turn it static, make sure it's dynamic. If you turn it to static, when you rebuild your lighting, you're going to have errors pop up saying that your light map is too dense for your foliage, and that's because you're using a lot of different foliage meshes. And if you're using static lighting, Unreal builds those light maps, actually renders them out, and that'll use a lot of memory, and Unreal will complain about that. So make sure your directional light in an outside environment like this is set to dynamic or movable. I think Unreal calls it movable. So yeah, make sure it's not static but movable. Now I have a skylight in this scene as well, and the skylight is in this scene and it is set to static simply because we're going to be going inside this building, and if you don't set it to static and you're inside a building, you can get, it doesn't shadow properly, it shadows really strangely if you set it to movable. So make sure your skylight, if you're going inside of a building, is set to static. Make sure your directional light, particularly if you're in an outside environment like this, is set to movable or dynamic. And again, the skylight just helps to fill in some of the ambient light bounce. So the directional light gives you your sun direction, and the skylight just gives you dynamic lighting, which is like reflected light from the sky. Bounced light, basically. It just stops your shadows from appearing too black. Yeah, now that tip I gave you about the terrain turning black with more than 4 textures is true. The reason mine turned black is because the shader had to recompile. Alright, now that is the wrong texture. I can see it just a bit through here. That's not the one that I want, I don't think. No. It's going to undo that. So which one is it? Maybe it is this one here. Let's try this one. Please don't recompile again. No, it's not that one. Sniper Echo says, and is that because there is more than 4 textures overall, or because it's more than 4 painted in one area? That's why I can have 6 textures. I just make sure that no more than 4 of them are painted in one of these squares at a time. Hey, go for Xenon. Good to see you, buddy. I want to thank you guys too that retweet my tweets or like my tweets. I know that Go for Xenon's done it, and I know Sniper Echo's done it. I'm sure a few of you have that I'm not mentioning, but I do appreciate when you guys retweet my tweets or like my tweets. But yeah, now getting back to Sniper Echo's question, it's not. It's just no more than 4 textures on one of those squares that make up your landscape. Which is how I can get away with using 6, because I never use more than 4 just in one of those square sections. No, I've got to find that texture. Where is it? Did I not rename it or something? Maybe I still called it Circle Pavement, but it's not Circle Pavement. Let's have a look. Again, this is the first time I've used this texture on this square of the landscape, so we've got to wait for our compile again. Any other questions you guys might have with Unreal? You want to ask me anything about Unreal that you're not sure about? Or 3D? No, but yeah, again, I'm just pointing out the colouring in our landscape grass and trees that we've just added is off because we haven't rebuilt the lighting. So anyone watching that may be thinking, geez, that grass looks a bit green or looks a bit bright, or those trees look a bit bright, it's simply because we haven't rebuilt the lighting yet. When we do a rebuild on the lighting, all of that will blend in really well. But I'll do that off stream. You don't want to watch the Unreal Engine build lighting for half an hour, guys. It's really boring. It's like watching paint dry. Let me just paint. Okay, that's the one we want. Okay. Go for Xenon says, can you change the size position of those areas in which you can paint up to 4 textures? Can you change the size or position of those areas? No, I don't think so. You may be able to actually when you create the landscape. Can't remember exactly if you can actually control the grid size, because that's what you're looking to do. My landscape tool. Yeah, I don't know. You may be able to change the grid size, because that's what you're looking for. You want to change your grid size if you want a smaller area where you can add more textures in one spot. I just can't remember if... I think you can change that actually. I think it's something to do with the grid size in Unreal. If you make your grid size large... if you want to add more than 4 textures in an area that's smaller, you'd make your grid size smaller, not larger. You could try doing that. If you need more than 4 textures in one spot, in one grid. You can usually get away with using 4 is usually enough. Yeah, normally 4 will be enough in one of those grids anyway. So don't think that being limited to 4 textures is too limiting. It's really not. Particularly if you start placing things like plants and trees and things in your level. It's going to cover up a lot of the ground anyway. You can generally make do with 4. Oh, now I'm painting it back out again. That's the one I want. Let's paint our path back in again. Just got to decide whether I want this path to go all the way around the building or not. Now path does, this texture does actually have like a water texture amongst the rocks. When that sun hits it at the right angle, we'll get a reflection. It's a bit hard to see here. You can sort of see it through here. Right. Now I'm just gonna, again, I'm gonna pull back into my other path because I want to get an idea of width of the path here. Alright. That's not too bad. I think we may continue the path all the way around the building, and then I'll remove parts of the path, I think. Yeah, let's do that. Let's paint our path in. We'll take it right up to the fence line and up to the front door. And you see we've just hit a new spot, a new one of those squares that so the shader has to recompile. That sort of gives you an idea of how big the square is. It's about from there to about here. So it's sort of like that. I can continue painting while it compiles its shader. I generally prefer to leave it do its work until I start repainting though. That's just a habit I get into because I don't trust software not to crash. So, but you should be able to continue painting while it's doing its compile of shaders down here. Like I said, I just like to be extra careful with software. Every piece of software at some stage will crash. That's just the nature of software. So doesn't mean the program is bad, that's just the way it is. We're going to paint our path. We're going to make this stone pathwork go all the way around the building, I think. I'm not painting it right up to the edge of our grass though. We're going to look at that in just a minute. Okay, let's paint our path around our tree. Again, let's paint it up to our fence line and up to our doorway. Oh, the camera doesn't like being angled there. All right. Again, I'm going to paint the stonework right up to the edge of the building. I'm going to come back in a minute and we'll look at changing this up a bit. Up to our door. Again, we've just hit a new square there, you can see. So we'll just give it a minute to recompile. But yeah, go for Xenon. Don't think that 4 textures is going to limit you. It really won't. Not really. As long as your textures are an interesting looking texture to begin with, and so long as you use depth blending, which generally is what you do use in your layers for your landscape anyway, then you'll get a nice look. Yeah, Gopa Zenon says, yeah, the squares are relatively small, so it's not much of an issue. Yeah, it's not. The squares are pretty tiny, so you should be good. But like I said, don't feel you can use more than 4. You just can't use more than 4 in one of those squares, that's all. So you can use as many as you want, as long as you don't use more than 4 in a square. Alright, she's almost finished compiling the shader. Okay, let's finish painting our pathway in. Again, I'm just going to make sure I'm just getting the width correct. Yeah, Sniper Echo says you can change the grid size if he remembers correctly in UE4 anyway. I think you're right. I think you can change the grid size. I think it's when you actually, it's something to do with when you bring in your height map or when you create your terrain. I think it's on the initial creation of the terrain. So when you create your landscape, I think there's a setting in there to change the grid size on initial creation. But the default value still creates a terrain that's pretty small anyway, a square that's pretty small anyway, so. Let's paint it up to our doorway again. And again, I'm making sure I don't angle my camera in a specific direction because, and it's that direction that OBS doesn't like. It's where our main entry is, that ornate gate section at the front. OBS hates that. And I really think it's something that it's a problem with the program, the new version of the program, because I never used to have that problem until I updated it to 19.02. And I'm not bitching about it because OBS is free and it's a great piece of software. So, you know, I'm thankful that the guys work on it for free. So, you know, if it breaks in a release here and there, I'm quite happy to wear that. That's fine. No, it's not completely broken, it just means we have to be a bit more careful, that's all. Alright. Now I'm just going to check my handiwork here to make sure my path width is about the same all the way around. Make it a bit bigger through here. Alright, that should be good. Okay, now again, I'm just going to watch what I do here with my camera. I'll go backwards. Alright. Now we still have to do things like spread our leaves and stuff along the outside of the path, but what I want to do is look at the building first, I think. Say through here. We have our path going right up to the side of the building. And while that's okay, I just think it makes the building look a bit boring. So I'm going to come back to my dirt and I'm going to paint that in through here, just around the edges of the building. Maybe just either side of our side doorway here. So I'm removing the path and putting back dirt. I'm going to jump it back into my foliage tool. I'm going to make sure everything is turned all. Okay. Now I'm going to look for our, we have a fern, this one here. Why aren't you letting me paint? Okay, I've got to turn it on, that would help. I'm going to reduce my brush size. Now, you see what it's happened? It's painted the fern up here in the windows. It's going to undo that. And the reason it's doing that is because I have, where is it? There is a setting here that allows you to paint on an object.